please welcome Sherman Gillums for his talk, Embrace Your Default, The Power of Authenticity.
No matter who you are or where you're from, every single one of us in this room shares one special aspect of our existence. At the moment we were born, each one of us was the youngest person on earth. Now imagine being able to go back in time at that moment when you were born anew and got to see yourself in the mirror for the first time, and how special that might have been, getting to know that person that you realize, hey, that's me. I don't have to imagine that moment because I remember it like it was yesterday, except I wasn't a newborn. I was a 29-year-old Marine who went from wearing a camouflage uniform and helmet to being trapped in that place where hell met me for the first time. It was in 2002. I was a patient on the VA spinal cord injury unit in San Diego. I'd been there for 6 weeks when the doctors came in to remove the neck brace that held my spinal column in place, after which time the nurse came to me and said, hey, we're going to have to get you up, and began the process of learning how to take care of yourself so you can be independent, which made me happy to think I'd progressed to that point. But I was still pretty weak, so they had to help me get out of the bed, lowered me into the wheelchair, after which the nurse guided me into the bathroom where I saw a sink, toothbrush, razor, and soap sitting beneath a big mirror. And it was at that moment I met the stranger. Now, this stranger blinked when my eyes blinked, and his head moved when mine moved. But the sight that I saw so repulsed me, and it was so hard to look at. I said to myself, there's no way that could be me. And it's kind of at that point when I began to negotiate my existence with God and try to think how this was going to be livable. And, the dialogue behind my eyes, between my ears, went something like, there are two people here. And one of us has to go. We both can't stay. So we're going to have to find a way to make this livable. And so I thought about, how do I separate my reality from my identity to make this work? And then it dawned on me. The mask. I'll just wear a mask. As long as I can see the world through this optical delusion that I'll create for myself, I can get through it. After all, that's what people do, right? When your sexual orientation is a problem for your family, you hide in the closet. Or when those bruises on your face turn blue from the fight you had with your loved one the night before, you cry it out in the shower at 8:30, apply the makeup by 8:45, and by 9 o'clock, you're at work with a smile on your face. Or when that addiction has gotten so bad, it starts to cost you. But not as much as it'll cost me if I ask for help and people find out. That's how people get through it. In fact, it's so common now. And I thought about, I had learned about this mask thing a lot sooner than I thought. And I thought back to my mom. That's my mom with that big red afro. That's her natural color, by the way. And that's me with my pinstripe suit and white tie like a baby hitman, right? And I thought about, even before I could give it words and knew what it was called, I'd learned code switching from this woman. She's one of the smartest people I'd ever met. Very well read. She was raised by an English teacher. So there was nothing about her diction or her articulation that was problematic. But there were always these moments when my little sister Tony and I could tell when she would get on the phone, and we were always attuned to her being on the phone because that's when we could sneak and get cookies and do all the things when your parents are on the phone. We could always tell when she was on the phone with a white person. Because she went from our mom, whose voice we were used to the lady, as I think back on it, you know, when you get in your car and you plug your directions in your GPS and right? Please proceed to the highlighted route, or Alexa or Siri, you know, that was her voice, and we thought that was pretty funny. That was our mom. I'm like, wow, mom's, she's on the phone with a white person. and that humored us, right? That was, and we didn't think anything of it. That wasn't a big deal. And we never thought about why until much later. And it became less funny when I thought about it. This is the man she was married to at age 18, and she was 20 years old, and he was killed by a police officer when I was a year old, unarmed, in '73. And I can only imagine what it was like for her to live with that, live with a life that you loved devalued in a way by a social structure that had taken him away, and then to have this little baby named after him. What am I going to do to make sure that he understands how to give his life value so he's not taken in the same way? And so what she wasn't doing is amusing us. She was essentially teaching us a survival skill, my sister and I, when she did that. Now, I don't know if it's fortunate or not, but nowadays, it's not so obvious. Most people live behind a mask. In fact, social media has made it such that we can be anybody we want to be, right? In fact, these are my 4 daughters. Queens of selfies, I call them. Now, they're young, and the thing about my daughters is they can put on this identity and be whoever they want to be in social media, and that's okay because I knew who they were at home, and I could compare who they portray themselves to be against who I knew them to be. And by the way, I didn't have to spy on my daughters because they told their whole life to the world. I just had to find out which social media handle they had, and then, of course, they blocked me, and then I'd had to figure out how to find another way to spy on them. But this is essentially, you know, how I learned the value of social media in redefining one's identity. But there are consequences when you're not a kid and it's not for fun. Now, who in this room has ever gone on a date with somebody that you met on social media, fell in love over an extended period, and the person wasn't who you thought? Some people are laughing. Did that happen to you? Right? You go all this time, you're talking to this person, it's this great individual, and you're just, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. My life is going to change. You make the big day happen. You're going to meet at a coffee house or a restaurant. You're sitting there, you got your best on, you know who you are, and then the person that walks in is nothing like the person you thought you were going to see all that time. It hurts a lot to be confronted with reality, when identity and reality kind of clash in that way. It also hurt when I stepped in front of that mirror and saw the individual that I didn't expect to see. What I remember was a Marine, strapping and proud, and the person I saw would have made me vomit had I eaten anything over the days before. And there were consequences to that. That's when the optical delusion became the way I wanted to live, behind a mask. And you know, that became the norm. Actually, it wasn't too bad to live that way. Life for me became a stage. Where the curtains would go up, I'd put on the mask, script in hand, and everything was fine. I'd leave the house, go to the supermarket. Thank you for your service, sir. Yeah, thank you, I appreciate that. God bless the troops, sir. Thank you, God bless the troops, yeah. We love you, sir. And that was great until the inevitable moment came when you had to go back home. The curtains had to close, and I had to take the mask off to breathe again and live with the reality that wasn't part of the script. Yeah. People love the troops because they don't have to be the troops. Or live the way the troops live. Navigate life the way troops navigate. When they come home and they're strangers in their own democracy, misunderstood, treated like outcasts. That's the off-script part. And it's a living. It's the way a lot of the troops get by. Right? In fact, we find all kinds of ways to get by. This book, The Enchiridion by Epictetus. Anybody ever heard of it? It's from Greek philosophy, Stoicism. It's the kind of thing they teach you in Marine Corps boot camp, the stoic way you live. And it just so happens to relate to Greek theater. You see those masks, comedy and tragedy, the masks, the muses. These became my muses, my sources of inspiration. And the muses are great, right? These were masks that the Greek actors in ancient Greece would wear and put on so that the audience, which was often in a distance, could see the emotion that the actor wanted to portray during the play from the script. It's how a lot of us live. If I count out 5 of you, one of you is likely to have a mental illness. Which one is it? Identify yourself. If I count out 20 of you over here, your mental illness is likely to be serious enough to have affected your relationships, your economy, your health in many ways. 1 out of 20. And if it's none of you, and none of you, if I'm sitting with you, it's me. I'm the one. So everywhere I go, I'm a rolling statistic. I'm that one, but it's more likely to be more people than we figure. But we wear the mask. And you know what? It's okay. It's not that a mental illness is the problem. It's when you choose to hide it and never allow yourself the benefit of asking for help. That's the problem. Because at some point, you're going to get unmasked. You're going to get unmasked. Now, in my case, when I got unmasked, It kind of came out of nowhere when I least expected it. I was a outpatient at that point, and I'd gone to the VA to do a outpatient clinic appointment. I finished the appointment, rolling down the hallway, saw a sign on the wall that said, "Veteran Support Group, free lunch." I don't remember the support group part, but I remember the free lunch part. And so I navigated down the hallway and found a day room where there were a group of veterans sitting around talking about how bad their lives were. And I wasn't quite ready to open up in that way, but I could relate to a lot of what they were talking about. So I knew I was in a place where, well, at least people understand me, but I'm not at that point where I'm ready to talk. I've got my mask on. I'm not ready to, this is their thing. I'll just listen in. So in order to kind of separate myself from the group, we had been handed this clipboard with, some questions on it. So instead of trying to be involved in the discussion, I kind of focused on the clipboard, looked down at it, and I said, okay, let's see what this thing is about. Do you ever have trouble sleeping, either falling asleep or staying awake? Thought, yeah, it happens. Second question. Do you ever have problems with your appetite, either eating too much or not enough? Oh, yeah. That's me, yeah. Third question. Do you ever avoid socializing with others? I said, well, this thing is hitting a little bit close to home. I don't know if I'm comfortable with all these questions they're asking, but it's just me. I can be honest. But it was the next question that hit me in the heart in a way that I didn't expect. Do you ever feel like a failure? Or that you let the people around you down? Or that you're a burden to your family? Yeah. So after I answered the questions and finished up the questionnaire, the facilitator she was sitting there waiting for all the veterans to talk to her, and I waited till the last one finished up, and I rolled up to her and I said, "Hey, Doc, I answered a lot of these questions, and a lot of these boxes applied to me. And I'm not sure what to make of what I'm reading here." And she looked at me with the warm smile of concern and said, "We should probably make an appointment and talk about what's going on in your life." And it was at that point the mask came off, and I didn't expect that. In fact, I made the appointment, and while it didn't happen overnight, I began this journey of better understanding what I experienced, to give words to what was going on in my head. Why was I feeling the way I felt? And while it was a process, and there were a lot of highs and lows, she did a couple of very important things for me. The first thing she helped me realize is that it's okay to forgive the person you had to be in survival mode. And more importantly, life was meant to be lived, not survived. And I guess that was the point when the mask came off completely. In fact, I had given up the muses for the muse I've been looking for, Dr. Jerry Muse. And after a period of a couple of years and real recovery, the optical delusion dissipated as she helped me understand that you don't have to be an actor in this play that is your life. You're the director. And you don't have to live from a script. You just share your life, and the script will write itself and become a chapter in somebody else's survival guide. Now, there were 3 takeaways from this experience in total that I want to share with you. The first one, your existence is not up for negotiation. When you wear a mask, you never know if it's you that people accept, embrace, and love, or is it your representative? And you deserve to know. You also deserve to know who's going to be in your corner when you ask for help. And if you don't find that right person, there's always that one friend that we all want and need that will never lie to you and never leave you. And that's the person you see in the mirror every day. The second takeaway, you don't have to participate with the optical delusion. The one thing masks do, instead of blocking out hardship, they also block it in. Right? We've all heard the 3 words that will define our time. What are they? You're on mute. And how do you feel when you find out you're on mute? How? But you also realize one very important thing about being on mute, that you take yourself off mute. You have that power to take yourself off mute. And just as a caveat, one of my favorite movies growing up was Superman, not the George Reeve, but the Christopher Reeve. But there's one annoying aspect of that movie. When you see Clark Kent with the glasses, and it's like, I can see that you're Superman. What? You're fooling Jimmy and Lois Lane, but I can see that you're Superman. Take those glasses off and let your superpower go. Well, that's what happens when you take that mask off. You release your superpower. And that superpower is the ability to heal others. All right? And then the last takeaway. That mask is coming off, either by chance or choice, but it's always your choice. Something else we learned during the pandemic. It's pretty nice to be authentic at work, isn't it? It's pretty nice to be in your living room and to have your kids run by, your pet jumping in front of your laptop. I was on one call and some guy had a chicken running in his living room, and I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. I mean, he's got a chicken in his living room. Okay. And you know what? I don't think anything bad of him. And that's the one thing I hope we don't lose as we go back to whatever normal was. We don't give up this idea that being authentic feels good. and that wearing a mask turned out not to be the best way to live for a lot of us. All right? So let that superpower go. Heal others. Now, a lot of us in here are probably doing okay. A lot of us are healers and providers, and that's great. So I really want to direct what I'm about to say to maybe the individual in here who's not doing so well or may hear this at some point that needs to hear this message. A lot of times it's about perspective, and I want to demonstrate what that means. All right? I talked to you about my perspective and how that was shaped by the experiences I had, but a lot of what you're going through is about perspective. And I want to do a demonstration to put you in the moment and help you understand what that feels like. I'm going to read these words that I've probably said to myself in so many ways or another. I do not matter. I cannot be convinced that I should see myself any other way. Simply put, I refuse to believe that my life has value. Now, most of the time when you're saying this, you're looking down on yourself. You're looking down and you're seeing how far you've fallen. And you have the right to feel that way. But there are also those points in your life where perspective matters, and it changes everything. I want you to look at these very same words, and instead of reading them from top down, start from the bottom and read upward. My life has value. Simply put, I refuse to believe I should see myself any other way. I cannot be convinced that I do not matter. If you're that person that needed to have this shift in perspective, go home, stand in front of a mirror, look at that person who's looking back at you, and tell that individual, I am defined by my defaults, not my faults. And if the tears have to fall, let them fall. Sometimes hope can only be seen through eyes that have cried, but see the hope. See the hope. And then I'll leave you with this last word of encouragement. There will be many people in your life who will doubt you. Don't let the person you see in the mirror every day be one of them. Thank you for letting me share my story.
Sherman Gillums.